of this morning, Robert Crimo III has now pleaded guilty on all counts related to the mass shooting. Let's get to our Sabrina Franza, who's live for us at the Lake County Courthouse with more on this last-minute change. Sabrina.
Hey, Marie, this decision really shocked the courtroom today. We were all expecting to hear opening statements from both sides today. The day began pretty normally with dismissing one of the jurors and replacing them with an alternate. And then almost immediately after, the court was in recess, just about 15 minutes after we began for the day. After that, the judge came back and the defense said that Robert Crimo III, the accused in this case, who's accused of 21 counts of first-degree murder and 48 counts of attempted murder for what happened at the 4th of July parade in Highland Park in 2022, he changed his plea to guilty. He was asked multiple times by Judge Rossetti, do you enter into this plea with your own free will? Were you coerced in any way into entering this plea? And each time he said, no, I was not coerced. Yes, I am doing this on my own free will. Yes, he said he understood the repercussions for this change of plea. And they went through the facts of the case, what happened briefly on the 4th of July in Highland Park back in 2022. They named each of the 7 victims who died that day and each of the 48 victims who were injured that day, who were presumably on the lengthy list of witnesses that we expected to hear from over the next 3 to 5 weeks. Those witnesses will no longer have to testify in this case because Crimo has changed his plea. The judge accepted his plea as guilty. Many of the folks who were here from Highland Park that were in the courtroom waited, held their breath until the proceedings ended for the day, and they went home to try to take a second to process it all. Take a listen.
They have all gone home to process. They each expressed an individual and a collective sense of relief, but today was a very emotional event, and they are all asking for some time and space to come to terms with what happened today, as positive a development as it may have been.
Many of the folks from Highland Park that were here had hoped for justice at the end of this. They said they hoped for closure at the end of this, and it's possible that they might feel a sense of that after today. Next, there is a sentencing date scheduled for Robert Crimo III. They'll talk about the facts of the case, and that's scheduled for later in April. Marie, send it back to you.
Sabrina Franz at the Lake County Courthouse, thank you for walking us through this morning's changes. I'd now like to bring in our legal analyst, Irv Miller. He's also live at the courthouse for us with our CBS News Chicago crew. And Irv, if you can, tell us about what you think the conversations may have been over the past few days that ultimately may have led up to this change.
You know, I'll be honest with you, I don't think there were conversations over the last few days. I think this morning the defense attorneys went into the lockup and said to Mr. Crimo, I've got to give an opening statement today. Would you mind telling me what our defense is? And at that point in time when Mr. Crimo probably said, I don't know, the attorney said, listen, you better start thinking about whether or not you want to go ahead with this trial, because it's going to be 3 to 5 weeks of watching gruesome testimony, gruesome photographs, and do you really want to go through that, or do you want to, show some remorse and do the right thing? And the lawyers, I think, convinced him to go ahead and plead guilty today.
Interesting. Now, with this decision or this plea, is there any possible chance, like there's wiggle room that this could change once again? I know it feels very solid right now. I know certainly victims of the parade shooting hope it to be that way. But what is the process when it comes to changing a plea like this?
Well, it is provided for by Illinois statute that a defendant within 30 days can say, listen, Judge, I want to change my mind. I want to withdraw my plea of guilty. But there's a difference between now and what happened several months ago when he said, Judge, I just want to change my plea. I don't want to enter a plea of guilty. Today he has to have some kind of legal reason to change the plea, and that means the judge didn't properly advise him of all his rights to trial by jury, his rights to confront his accusers, didn't tell him the minimum, maximum sentences, ask him if anybody coerced him to plead guilty. And if the judge didn't ask him one of those things, he would have a legal reason to change his plea. But that doesn't happen very often. It's a rarity, but he does have that right to change his plea.
Okay, great. Irv Miller for us at the Lake County Courthouse. Irv, thank you. We will have much more on this courtroom bombshell in our newscast starting at 4 this afternoon.